But in any event, you couldn't do it all by yourself. It would be too vast a project. So I did the three most important documents, I think. Damascus Document, Community Rule, and Habakkuk Pesher in this particular work, and I give you the Hebrew too, so you can check. And that was the first book that had the Hebrew and the English side by side. Most people thought the public was too dumb to want to read the actual language, but some people in the public actually can go and look in a dictionary and see if you've actually got the right word, and online now you can do it. So it was important to put the Hebrew, and we did that in the Dead Sea Scrolls Uncovered. Michael Weiss and I did that, as I told you, and I did it here too. Now everybody does it, or a lot of people do it. This person, which is, they don't do it in the Penguin Vermesh one, but this person here, who sent me his books, and whom I saw yesterday, a really nice friend of mine, Florentino Garcia Martinez, who teaches in Holland, though he comes from Spain, and he's got, you see, the Hebrew and the English. He sent to me. Put some kind words in here. Really, can't remember what he said, but something. But anyway, the point is that I've used it so much because it's the only one. In the end, I can't use Vermesh's translation because I don't have the Hebrew to check him up. But this one has the Hebrew of everything side by side. It's called the Reader's Edition. His English translations aren't very good because he's actually Spanish, and he works from Spanish to Dutch, and they translate it from Dutch into English. Well, that's absurd. It's gone through 3 translations. So the English is totally inaccurate, but the Hebrew is accurate. So that's why, those are all markers so I can find things for footnotes on this. Anyway, knowers of righteousness, Yodei Zedek. Comprehend the works of God, Ma'aseh El. The works based on the Hebrew oseh, based on the Hebrew do. If you look at the letter of James, you'll see the emphasis on doing. James in the first column says, be a doer. Be a doer. Exactly Dead Sea Scroll language. Later on he says, those who do judgment. Just look at the actual Greek of the, don't stick, get interlinear. You know, don't stick to an English translation because you can't be sure the English translation is picking up these special usages. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they'll even change a singular in translation into a plural, which is really infuriating. I think in the letter of James, it's something to do with you kill the righteous one, talking about not the Jews, by the way, the rich. The rich killed the righteous one in the letter of James, not the Jews. You killed the righteous one, though he offered you no resistance. And they have, you see a lot of translations, you killed the righteous ones, plural. Now, I don't know where they get off doing that since it's a singular usage. And Vermesh does that with Messiah. He puts anointed ones, plural, often instead of Messiah, because I think for some reason he just doesn't want to use the word Messiah because it only applies to one Messiah, I think he thinks. But I don't know what he thinks. That's up to him to, yeah. Because God has a dispute with all flesh and will do judgment. Oseh mishpat. On all, I don't know what he has. Here you can, let me see, I'm trying to put it down. Now I have to go look at it. I can't keep this up, so I'm trying not to. And before you can, and he will condemn. No, it's not the word condemn, it's wrong. See, it's good, reads good in English, but it's not what it's saying there. Do judgment. That's what is being said. You got to keep those words in there. You got to keep those words, I think. So that's the difference between, you know, trying to be precise and consistent and not misleading the public, who, not that anyone's purposely misleading anyone. The point is, though, that you're just getting a rough feel for it. On all those who insult him or blaspheme him, I'll keep going. Because they rebelled when they forsook him, he hid his face from Israel and the temple and delivered them up to the sword. Now, I put that in italics. Notice I tried to capitalize really important words. Not because it's good English usage, but to call your attention to it. And really important things I italicized. Delivered them up to the sword. Why? Because we have Judas Iscariot delivering up Jesus. You know, someone said in the conference last night, Judas, you should know, he didn't betray Jesus, he delivered him up. Yes, that's really important because it's language being used here over and over again in the Damascus document. One of my points is that there are things in the Gospels and elsewhere that are rephrasing things you'll find in the Dead Sea Scrolls and using them, transforming them into something else. In this case, the person who's supposedly betraying Jesus or whatever. But because of his memory of the covenant of the first, now it's very important. This does mean forefathers, as Vermesh has it here, in effect, or the ancestors, but the first. It's Rishonim in Hebrew. Anyone who knows Hebrew means Rishonim means Rishon is the first. Rishon LeZion, the first to Zion. Rishon is the first. The reason why I put the first, it's so important for gospel language. The first shall be last and the last shall be first. So you can put forefathers, but you lose the whole meaning, the importance of it. Vis-a-vis other language. Follow what I'm trying to say? That's so important. To get the language right, to keep the language in there. So the first shall be last and the last shall be first. Also, it's very important vis-a-vis the last days, the last times, the last generation, which is referred to over and over again in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Why did it make you do all that work in the earlier period of time, Maccabean period and so on, to see if there's anything looking like this in that period that you would parallel this with? And you see just on the internal data as you go along, this doesn't look like anything you'll see in Josephus from that time, or the Maccabee books, even Daniel doesn't. Some of these things are taken from Daniel, but it's not like this. Anyway, this is a form of grace too. We have grace in the Pauline corpus. You know, you're saved not because of anything you did, but because, you know, of grace. You know, amazing grace, and we can even sing it. It was grace who, you know, et cetera, 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 right? This is a kind of Old Testament form of grace here. You say, why am I emphasizing? Because let's suppose Paul was at Qumran, had spent some time there. Personally, do I think he was there? Yes, absolutely he was there. He knows the doctrines too well. I can't show you all of the doctrines he knows, that he switches, transforms, reverses, turns them into the mirror opposite. But he knows them perfectly.